Taxation, Section 7, Authority of the Commissioner to delegate power. The Commissioner may delegate the powers vested in him under the pertinent provisions of this code to any or such subordinate officials with the rank equivalent to a division, division chief or higher, subject to such limitations and restrictions as may be imposed under rules and regulations to be promulgated by the Secretary of Finance upon recommendation of the Commissioner, provided, however, that the following powers of the Commissioner shall not be delegated. Powers of the Commissioner shall not be delegated. A. The power to recommend the promulgation of the rules and regulations by the Secretary of Finance. B. The power to issue rulings of first impression or to reverse, revoke, or modify any existing ruling of the Bureau. C. The power to compromise or abate under Section 204 letter A and B of this code any tax liability, provided, however, that assessment issued by the regional offices involving basic deficiency taxes of 500,000 pesos or less and minor criminal violations as may be determined by rules and regulations to be promulgated by the Secretary of Finance. Upon recommendation of the Commissioner, discovered by regional and district officials, may be compromised by a regional evaluation board which shall be composed of the regional director as the chairman, the assistant regional director, the heads of the legal, assessment and collection divisions, and revenue district officer having jurisdiction over the taxpayer as members. And D. The power to assign or reassign internal revenue officers or establishment where articles subject to excise tax are produced or kept. Section 8. Duty of the Commissioner to ensure the provision and distribution of forms, receipt, certificate, and appliances, and the acknowledgement of payment of taxes. A. Provisions and distribution to proper officials. Any law to the contrary notwithstanding, it shall be the duty of the Commissioner, among other things, to prescribe, provide, and distribute to the proper officials the requisite licenses, internal revenue stamps, unique, secure, and non-removable identification markings, hereafter called unique identification markings, such as code or stamps, be affixed to or form part of all unit packets and packages and any outside packaging of cigarettes and bottles of distilled spirit, labels, and other forms, certificate, bonds, records, invoices, books, receipts, instrument, appliances, and apparatus used in administering the laws falling within the jurisdiction of the Bureau. For this purpose, internal revenue stamps or other markings and labels shall be caused by the Commissioner to be printed with adequate security features. Internal revenue stamps, whether of a barcode or fusion design or other markings, shall be firmly and conspicuously affixed or printed on each pack of cigars and cigarettes and bottles of distilled spirits, subject to excise tax in the manner and form as prescribed by the Commissioner, upon approval of the Secretary of Finance. To further improve tax administration, cigarette and alcohol manufacturers shall be required to install automated volume counters of packs and bottles to determine over removals and misdeclaration of removals. B. Receipt for payment mode. It shall be the duty of the Commissioner or his duly authorized representative or an authorized agent bank to whom any payment of any tax is made under the provisions of this code to acknowledge the payment of such tax, expressing the amount paid and the particular account for which such payment was made in a form and manner prescribed therefore by the Commissioner. Section 9. Internal Revenue Districts. With the approval of the Secretary of Finance, the Commissioner shall divide the Philippines into such number of revenue districts as may from time to time be required for administrative purposes. Each of these districts shall be under the supervision of the Revenue District Officer or RDO. Section 10. Revenue Regional Director. Under rules and regulations, policies, and standards promulgated by the Commissioner with the approval of the Secretary of Finance, the Revenue Regional Director shall, within the region and district offices under his jurisdiction, among others, a. Implement laws, policies, plans, programs, rules and regulations of the department and agencies in the regional area. B. Administer and enforce internal revenue laws and rules and regulations, including the assessment and collection of all internal revenue taxes, charges, and fees. C. Issue letters of authority for the commission of taxpayers within the region. D. Provide economical, efficient, and effective service to the people in the area. E. E. Coordinate with regional offices or other departments, bureaus, and agencies in the area. F. Coordinate with local government units in the area. G. Exercise control and supervision over the officers and employees within the region. And H. Perform such other functions as may be provided by law and as may be delegated by the Commissioner. Section 11. Duties of the Revenue District Officers and other internal revenue officers. It shall be the duty of every revenue district officers or other internal revenue officers and employees to ensure that all laws and rules and regulations affecting national internal revenue are faithfully executed and complied with, and to aid in the prevention, detection, and punishment of frauds or delinquencies in connection therewith. It shall be the duty of every revenue district officer to examine the efficiency of all officers and employees of the Bureau of Internal Revenue under his supervision, and to report in writing to the Commissioner through the Regional Director any neglect of duty, incompetency, delinquency, or malfeasance in office of any internal revenue officer of which he may obtain knowledge, with the statement of all the facts and any evidence sustaining each case. Section 12. Agents and deputies for collection of national internal revenue taxes. The following are hereby constituted agents of the Commissioner. A. The Commissioner of Customs and his subordinates with respect to the collection of national internal revenue taxes on imported goods. B. The head the head of the appropriate government offices and his subordinate with respect to the collection of energy tax. And C. Banks duly accredited by the Commissioner with respect to receipt of payments of internal revenue taxes authorized to be made through banks. Any officer or employee of an authorized agent, bank assigned to receive internal revenue tax payments and transmit tax returns or documents to the Bureau of Internal Revenue shall be subject to the same sanctions and penalties prescribed in Section 269 and 270 of this code. Section 13, Authority of a Revenue Officer. Subject to the rules and regulations to be prescribed by the Secretary of Finance, upon recommendation of the Commissioner, the Revenue Officer assigned to perform assessment functions in any district may, pursuant to a letter of authority issued by the Revenue Director, Regional Director, examine taxpayers within the jurisdiction of the district in order to collect the correct amount of tax and to recommend the assessment of any deficiency tax due in the same manner that the said acts could have been performed by the Revenue Regional Director himself. Section 14. Authority of officers to administer oaths and take testimony. The Commissioner, Deputy Commissioner, Service Chief, Assistant Service Chief, Revenue Regional Directors, Assistant Revenue Regional Directors, Chief and Assistant Chief of Divisions, Revenue District Officers, Special Deputies of the Commissioners, Internal Revenue Officers, and any other employee of the Bureau thereunto specially deputized by the Commissioner shall have the power to administer oaths and take testimony in any official matter or investigation conducted by them regarding the matters within the jurisdiction of the Bureau. Section 15. Authority of Internal Revenue Officers to make arrests and seizures. The Commissioner, the Deputy Commissioner, the Revenue Regional Directors, and the Revenue District Officers and other Internal Revenue Officers shall have authority to make arrests and seizures for the violations of any penal law, rule, or regulations administered by the Bureau of Internal Revenue. Any person so arrested shall be forthwith brought before a court, there to be dealt with according to law. Section 16. Assignment of Internal Revenue Officers involving in excise tax functions to establish where articles subject to excise tax are produced or kept. The Commissioner shall employ, assign, or reassign Internal Revenue Officers involved in excise tax functions as often as the exigencies of the Bureau of Service may require, to establish or places where articles subject to excise tax are produced or kept, provided that an Internal Revenue Officer assigned to any such establishment shall in no case stay in his assignment for more than 2 years, subject to rules and regulations to be prescribed by the Secretary of Finance upon recommendation of the Commissioner. Section 17. Assignment of Internal Revenue Officers and other employees to other duties. The Commissioner may, subject to the provisions of Section 16 and the laws of civil service, as well as the rules and regulations to be prescribed by the Secretary of Finance, upon the recommendation of the Commissioner, assign or reassign Internal Revenue Officers and employees of the Bureau of Internal Revenue without change in their official rank and salary to other or special duties connected with the enforcement or administration of the revenue laws as the exigencies of the service may require, provided that Internal Revenue Officers assigned to perform assessment or collection functions shall not remain in the same assessment for more than 3 years, provided further that assessment of Internal Revenue Officers and employees of the Bureau to special duties shall not exceed 1 year. Article 18. Reports of violation of laws. When an Internal Revenue Officer discovers evidence of a violation of this code or of any law, rule, or regulations administered by the Bureau of Internal Revenue of such character as to warrant the institution of criminal proceedings, he shall immediately report the facts of the Commissioner through his immediate superior, giving the name and addresses of the offender and the names of the witnesses if possible, provided that in urgent cases, the Revenue Regional Director or Revenue District Officer, as the case may be, may send the report to the corresponding prosecuting officer. In the latter case, a copy of his report shall be sent to the Commissioner. Section 19. Contents of the Commissioner's Annual Report. The annual report of the Commissioner shall contain detailed statements of the collections of the Bureau with specification of the sources of revenue by the type of tax, by manner of payment, by revenue region, and by industry group, and its disbursement by classes of expenditures. In case the actual collection exceeds or falls short of target as set in the annual national budget by 15% or more, the Commissioner shall explain the reason for such excess or shortfall. Section 20. Submission of report and pertinent information by the Commissioner. A. Submission of pertinent information to Congress. The provision of Section 270 of this Code. To the contrary, notwithstanding, the Commissioner shall, upon request of the Congress and in aid of legislation, furnish its appropriate committee pertinent information including but not limited to industry audits, collection performance data, status reports in criminal actions initiated against persons and taxpayers' returns, provided, however, that any return or return information which can be associated with or other identify directly or indirectly a particular taxpayers shall be furnished the appropriate committee of Congress only when sitting in executive session, unless such taxpayer otherwise consents in writing to such disclosure. B. Report to Oversight Committee. The Commissioner shall, with reference to Section 204 of this Code, submit to the Oversight Committee referred to in Section 290 hereof, through the Chairman of the Committee on Ways and Means of the Senate and House of Representatives, a report on the exercise of his powers pursuant to the said section every 6 months of each calendar year. Section 21. Sources of Revenue. The following taxes, fees, and charges are deemed to be the National Internal Revenue taxes. A. Income tax. B. Estate and donors taxes. C. Value added tax. D. Other percentage tax. E. Excise tax. F. Documentary stamp taxes. And G. Such other taxes as are or hereafter may be imposed and collected by the BIR.